kind of mess up their setup here. Thank you, Governor.
How are you?
Governor, how are you? It's good to see you.
Glad to see the ties on. I didn't know if you guys were wearing them.
Hello, Governor.
Nice to see you.
So nice to see you.
Thank you. You guys just literally just got in, huh?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Amazing. And I'm grateful for everything you're doing, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to have a chance to dialogue about it and talk about, what exactly is going on at this moment. Where do you see things going? But in order to paint the picture of this moment, I want to just formally welcome you to Ronald Reagan's old mansion, the place that Nancy Reagan infamously said was a fire trap before they moved out. It's been since remodeled, so you should feel more confident and comfortable here. But it's nice to be here, and I say that mindful of our history in the state of California, and mindful in many ways how far we've gone and how far we have traveled away from some of the core principles that defined the best of the Republican Party. And so without getting nostalgia for that, I just want to acknowledge the journey that you guys are on and express gratitude that you're not just here in California, but you've been all across, your colleagues all across this country. But first, if I could, I just want to briefly contextualize, because yesterday I experienced in a modest way a little bit about all that you've experienced in Texas coming from July 4th. A very close friend of my wife's family passed away, Mark, and his wife, Sarah, and his son, Johnny. Mark Walker, the Walker family, passed in the floods in Texas. My wife had the privilege of speaking a little bit at the memorial yesterday, and it was beyond intense. Johnny's 14 years old, the age of my son. They live in the neighborhood. And it really brought me back to what this is all about, this special session, what this special session should be about.
Right.
Yes.
I think, it was 137 people lost their life, 35
Yes.
children,
Yes.
kids. And that's what a special session as a governor should be all about.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I haven't heard a lot talked about. Those families torn asunder, those lives lost, people that are still healing.
Right.
What in a dry eye in the church
And the
yesterday.
sad
The
part
warrants for
about it,
our arrest are for redistricting, not for flood relief legislation, for redistricting legislation.
Says everything you need to know
That's
about this
right.
moment. So, if I may, I'd love, as we go around, and I want to make this as easy and casual as it possibly can be, just jump in. If you could introduce yourself so people that are listening know who you are. But what you just said just strikes the core of what this is all about. So you have been threatened to be hunted down by the Attorney General of Texas, Paxton. You are being fined $500 a day in a job where you don't make a lot of money.
$7,200 a year.
$7,200 a year.
A year.
Yes.
And you're being fined $500 a day.
Right.
You've got a guy named Cornyn who's running for re-election, senator. I say that because it's pretty obvious that it needs to be said, running for re-election, needed to get in on this. Now threatening to send the FBI to find you even though you're hiding in plain sight.
What's interesting about it is I kind of feel like we're in the perfect storm, because you've got Cornyn running against Paxton, and they're trying to outdo the other on who's going to apprehend us first, right? Then you have the governor who's also working on it, and I think maybe a little embarrassed, he and the speaker both, because we still haven't gotten back.
So your attorney general is running for the United States Senate against incumbent
That's
Senator
exactly
Cornyn, and they're trying to one-up each other
Exactly.
and attacking you rhetorically
Yes.
and substantively.
Well, and in the courts, just breaking news, they just filed to remove me and 12 other of my colleagues in the Texas House.
And the voice we're listening to is
Gina Hinojosa.
Gina. So you have been picked with 12 of your colleagues, not
That's
all
right.
of your colleagues, but 12. What's that
Interesting.
about?
I have no idea. We're all wondering the same thing. But yes, myself and it was just filed by our Attorney General in the Texas Supreme Court. It's called a quo warranto proceeding to remove us from office.
So you've got a governor himself claiming some authority on that basis as well for simply, quote unquote, breaking a quorum.
Which has been done for 150 years by Texas legislators, to be clear.
As American as, dare I say, apple pie,
Yes.
breaking quorum, to
Right.
protect the minority against the whims of the majority.
Yes.
Because if you don't have some rule in place for the minority, then the majority just completely runs you over. And this is an extraordinary step. It is not something that we take lightly. It is an exceptional and extraordinary act to break quorum. And so my name's Ann Johnson, and I'm from Houston. I'm proud to sit with these other Democratic colleagues, and for some of us, this is now the second time
That's right.
we have had to do this in the last few years. And it really is an act. It is the last tool that the Founding Fathers gave to us in the minority to have available when you know that the majority has gone off the rails. And so we have been threatened with financial ruin, with arrest, but we are undeterred. And I think it highlights how important it is that if they will come at us this hard, and we actually are in positions of power, look at how easily they run over those that are most vulnerable and don't have a voice. And so I think that's why we are really resolute and are resolved that this is the right thing to do.
And you said this is not the first time, it was 2021.
Yep.
21, right?
And that was for different reasons. Remind me what those reasons were in 2021.
It was an
It was
anti-voter bill.
Then go ahead.
Well, it was a bill that made it much harder to vote. Two provisions in that bill that were the most egregious was one that banned Sunday morning voting, which was a target on African American churches that have a long-standing tradition of going after service as a faith community to vote together.
Yeah.
Called
The,
Souls to the Polls.
Souls to the polls, we know it well.
That's right. That's right.
The other provision would have given elected judges the ability to overturn election results, to overturn the will of the voters. And when those provisions were added in the middle, literally in the middle of the night, with no record of how they got into the bill, we left.
Right. But you didn't have the level, or did you, of threats? You didn't have the $500 fine that was being assessed. You didn't have senators calling for the FBI and calling the head of the FBI to sort of track you down.
Right. Well,
No.
it seems to me, and my name's Ray Lopez. I'm from San Antonio, and I've been in the House for a few years, a few sessions, and it seems the difference between where we were a few years ago when we broke quorum and where we are today is that while we have a lot of evildoers, and we've talked about who those people are, whether it's the governor, the attorney general, all the political gamesmanship that's being played, we also recognize that they are dancing to another evildoer. And we did not have that kind of engagement before. And that's the President of the United States, is encouraging them, giving them the path forward, giving them the tools like the FBI and others. We didn't battle that last time. We are battling it now, but it is layers of evildoers that are out there. And I mean, at some point, we all need to understand, who it is that we're up against, and it isn't just that one front that's attacking us. It's all those individuals that are behind them, providing them that level of support.
So
And it happens. It grows every day.
It grows every day. So that's important to remind everybody, just, people that are not tracking this hour by hour, day to day, they're not watching cable news, which is, one has to confess, the vast majority of people. The President of the United States, the origin story on this is the President called your governor, Greg Abbott, and the President asked him to do what?
So I'm Rhetta Andrews Bowers from Dallas, and thank you for having us today. But it's really about what's at stake, and I think that's what Ray was leading us into. So many people out there don't understand that this Texas special session is not an isolated incident, and it truly has implications that will carry across the United States. If this goes through with Texas, it can happen in so many other states. And you look at North Carolina, they already had something like this happen. So we're so glad to be here having this opportunity to chat with you today.
I appreciate it. And it happened because Donald Trump made a call and said, find me 5 seats.
Yep.
He's made those kinds of calls before, as we well know. Called into Georgia, I need 11,000, 12,000, whatever it was.
Right.
Good, because he thinks he is above the law. He thinks he's the one that can interpret all action, and that everybody has a loyalty to him. And they do, but it's a loyalty to the devil to do his bidding so that they can get in a position of power.
And the difference in
He's
Georgia,
done it before.
difference in Georgia, of course, was, Ray, that
He was told no.
He was told no, but in your state, your governor said yes.
Bend the knee.
And the only way you can get 5 additional seats in Texas is if you aggressively discriminate against the Hispanic and Black populations. You know, something's happening in Texas that's unique. For the first time, the Latino population is actually going to exceed that of California on a percentage basis.
On a percentage basis.
So we have over 40% now Latinos in Texas. It is
Yeah,
one of the
wow.
most diverse states in the nation. But under this proposal, we have 11 million white residents, 11 million Latino residents. 26 out of the 38 seats will be under white-controlled districts, while Latinos are only being relegated to 8. That means that the value of a Latino resident in Texas is 1/3 the value of a white resident.
So that, I mean, am I right to have learned or read accurately that 4 out of the 5 seats they're talking about taking are majority Hispanic districts?
Well, three
Sylvia's for sure.
out of the 4 were African American.
3 out of the 4 were African American, but minority districts
Yes.
nonetheless.
Yes. All minority.
Yeah, all minority
They were
districts.
all-
So voting rights acts issues here, I mean, they're just it's self-evident.
Yes.
They were previously held by heroes in Texas.
They're
Heroes that
historical.
have gone out and fought that fight for generations, and they're changing the demographics to be able to put someone else in there. That's
Yes.
just unheard
Like
of.
Barbara Jordan.
Right.
Congressional District 18. You know, she was the first African American woman of color from the South elected to the Congress. She was part of the impeachment trials against
Yeah,
President
legend.
Nixon.
Legend.
That district is a historic African American community, of which now that seat sits open.
Yes.
Because Governor Abbott, after the death of Congressman Turner, refused to allow a special election in that seat. And so when you look at the big ugly bill that has passed by one vote, you know how important the voices of that community are.
Yeah.
And so yes, it is shameful that being at 60 years of the Civil Rights Act, signed by President Johnson from Texas, that we now face discrimination by Governor Abbott bending the knee to Trump and wanting to steal 5 seats before the next election cycle. And so that's what we know is on the line, not just for Texas. This sweeps across the nation.
And that's the point now a number of you have made. This is not, again, just about Texas. And we're already reading about, we saw yesterday J.D. Vance himself, the Vice President of the United States, made his way to Indiana to try to convince the folks there to do the same. We've already heard the Speaker of the House and the Governor of Florida talk about their efforts or their desire to do their efforts. We know Ohio is already moving in this direction, Missouri, other states that likely will follow suit. So to your point, this is about rigging the election before a vote is cast before 2026. And is that fundamentally why you guys not only are breaking quorum, not only for yourself and standing tall and firm on behalf of the people that you represent, and your own values and your own conscience, I imagine, we'll get to that in a moment, but also to raise the alarm bells across the
didn't
country.
see-
This is not about your state, it's about our country, the United
Exactly.
States.
I didn't see how we couldn't not break quorum because it wasn't just about us. It was about saving democracy for the entire United States. Once this trickle effect, if everyone can do that, why do we have laws?
Yeah.
You know, to me, it was so serious because of the future of the United States.
And what district do you represent in Texas?
I'm in Houston. I represent House District 144.
And are your constituents, are they behind you? Are people applauding you? Or are they cautious and concerned for you, concerned for their country, don't know if this is appropriate? What's been the reaction?
Well, I'm probably the only one here who has a swing district, right? I'm like a 50-50 district.
Yeah.
So it's I guess on social media I get certain comments, but I have enough friends that they will correct them and try to enlighten them on what's really going on. Some of them are obviously bots and you just kind of don't pay attention to those, but
Yeah.
you know, I've had a lot of support, which I think is great, even from the other side, which I think is wonderful.
Are you finding that as well, most of you?
I mean, I think it's relevant to mention that I had a swing district the last time we broke quorum in 2021. Things changed for me after the maps were drawn that they thought were okay. And so I came back with the more Democratic district. And now my constituency is spot on, like, yes, please do this. We appreciate what you're doing. And I wasn't getting that last time. Last time it was like, you better get
They get
your,
back.
yes.
And how long, by the way, let's go back to 2021. How long did that last? How long was quorum broken?
About
We
6
stayed
weeks.
35 days?
Yeah, 6 weeks. It was
35
over.
days.
I mean, a quorum break, as a member one, this is the ultimate act of public service. We all wanted these jobs. We all put ourselves in the position that if we ever had to do it, we would. And we recognize this is bigger than any seat, any job, any individual. And we have left everything behind. We have left our families, we have left our businesses, we have left our homes. It means our neighbors are checking on our houses. Our families are picking up all the things that are left behind. People are asking how can they pitch in. But we all recognized the unfortunate circumstance of being in a state right now that is run by a almost supermajority of Republicans, where when they rammed through this attempt to steal 5 seats, and 99% of the thousands of people that came to testify against this bill said, don't do it. We don't want this. This is not for Texas. This is purely for Trump. Within a couple of days, they put it down, got a vote, threw it on the calendar, and tried to get it on the floor. We all recognized the only way we could uphold the voice of our voters was to physically have our body leave the state. And that is a sad comment on where we are right now. And at a time where you talk about every state and the domino effect of just trying to make it purely red or purely blue, at a time when voters desperately want us to find common ground, find a way to talk with each other, find a way to cross the aisle, when our colleagues just refuse to participate in that, and again, bent the knee to Trump, we have had to take this extraordinary act. And so, yeah, a couple extra days. It does mean a lot because you have more than 50 members held up together, in unison together, desperately trying to do the right thing against the vitriol of attacks that are so much worse than 4 years ago.
Yes.
We weren't experiencing the threats that we are now getting that is being,
Right.
I mean, I'm your former chief human trafficking prosecutor in Houston. I've had criminals threaten my life before. I never thought it would be coming from the governor, the attorney general, or others in elected
And
office.
using language like hunting people down. That's
right.
That's
Right.
very, I mean,
Yeah.
come on. What, didn't you write an op-ed showing a
did.
little bit of,
did.
potential residents? I mean, just, you weren't necessarily, you didn't come to this lightly.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, you
No, no,
really,
no.
you struggled with this decition.
We all did. I mean,
Yeah, we all did.
we all have been hearing the rumors that this might happen. I think we all had a hope and an expectation because we know nobody really wants to do this.
Yeah.
I think we all had a hope and an expectation that maybe our colleagues would come to their senses and not attempt this because it is going to be a domino effect and it is going to hurt democracy nationwide. This is not just about Texas. But when they filed the bill and then when they effectively put up sham hearings, we didn't even have a bill at the time that they went to Houston or Dallas and asked the voters to comment. They didn't even have the lines.
We
They
didn't
held
have
the
a map.
lines in secrecy. They didn't have a map.
No map.
And they dropped it at the last minute. At that point, you not only realized that this was rigging the election, this was a sham of a process of transparency.
The whole time.
So at the time that government is supposed to work, at a time where at least 137 people died in Central
I
Texas.
still can't get my arms around that. Again,
Yeah.
where the hell are your priorities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We've been there for 2 weeks. There are
They-
18 items on the call. Not one bill had been put forth,
Not one
except
bill.
for redistricting. Only one, and that
Related
does show their
to
priorities.
That's the
Recovery
first
and
thing we
survivors.
did the first 2 weeks that we were
That
there.
just anyone, listen, I don't care, Democrat or Republican, as a human being, just consider, pause, and reflect on that for a moment.
Right.
In terms of your values and your priorities, the things you lay claim to, particularly as we bring people to I think about Sunday service.
Yes.
I think about the good book.
Yes.
Try to square that with their priorities as it relates to this. But are there colleagues of yours that are quietly saying, just got to do this one for the team, Trump called, I've got to wear my red cape.
I don't see a single Republican defending the actual details of the bill, and I think part of the issue is this bill was so rushed. I don't think anybody has really fully looked at the level of discrimination that exists in this map.
Yeah.
If this passes, Texas Hispanics will be the most underrepresented group in America. exceeding the levels of discrimination that still exist in many parts of the Deep South with black residents in the state. The level of underrepresentation is something that will take Texas Hispanics back to the 1960s. But, but because Donald Trump wants it, he wants this temporary gain of power. He's going to sacrifice Hispanics, blacks, to get it.
Yes.
And I think that Republicans know that this is illegal, but the problem is they want to deliver those 5 votes at all costs to Donald Trump, but it's going to deliver a temporary gain in power because they're leaving it up to the courts to clean up this mess. So it's going to have an impact on California. It's going to have an impact in New York that they're proposing an overtly racist map to try to get 2 years of political power for Donald Trump. We've seen this in North Carolina and we've seen this in Louisiana.
Right, North Carolina, perfect example.
And that's a word, thank you, Vince, for saying that. That's a word that we're not even allowed to say on the House floor.
What word?
Racist. Racism.
What do you mean you can't say that on the House
We're
floor?
not allowed to say
There's no rule.
racist
That's
or
the
call it
rule.
what it is. We're
They
not
passed it.
allowed to call it what it is. And so we are encouraged to not call it a power grab, to definitely say that this is racial gerrymandering. And it really is. Vince talked about the reduction of power for Latinos, but for black people, it means that it will take 4 black votes to equal 1 white vote. So, and I have to talk about some of what it means to me. And you talked about the 18th Congressional District that I grew up in. One of those members, Barbara Jordan, was my sorority sister. But Mickey Leland, I held his hand as he announced his bid in my home for Congress when he left the State House. And the fact that the 18th has no representation right now, though I represent in Dallas, it still matters to me. That's my family that is not represented right now.
And just let me add, and it's been vacant. Sylvester died March 5th, and so that's how long it's been. And he set the election for November, just so that they could have the votes the way they have it in Congress.
You mentioned earlier just threats, and we talked about language. We talked about some of the threats we know about, but you had a notable bomb threat.
Yes.
In Illinois just a day or so ago. I mean, back to your families and someone checking, and you said just checking in on your home. I still go back to the financial pressure, but this is, a part-time job, and then you're going to end up paying fines that are greater than your entire gross salary. They even made it more difficult to even get paid, I'm told.
Right.
No longer direct deposits, forcing you to pick up
Gotta
your
pick 'em
meager check.
in
Yes,
person.
yes.
A little petty, but
Pick
that's
it
okay.
up in person.
Yeah, well, Petty doesn't even describe some of this. But back to just your personal, your family, your safety. I mean, I don't want to be maudlin about it, but I mean, that's got to be a real concern, no?
Well, on the flight over here, I got a text message from the daughter of my 90-year-old neighbor, and there were 6 police units that showed up to the neighborhood today. They got down, they tried to get into the backyard, and they looked around. It stretched the length of the entire street. It was clearly an excessive show of force, an expensive use of tax dollars that is just clearly designed to intimidate and just cause anxiety. And that's all it did, is just cause anxiety in my neighbors in my neighborhood. And but that was just this morning on the way over here. And other members had similar experiences, where there's been this level of intimidation.
Well, it's a lawlessness that comes from the top, right? It's not surprising that vigilantes will engage in lawlessness when our president turns on its head the idea of elections by saying we're going to predetermine the election by manipulating these maps so as to segregate racial minorities so that we get 5 more members of Congress. We have our senator acting outside the bounds of the law to ask the FBI to surveil political opponents in the United States of America. Our governor backing that plan. So I have a son at home who is in middle school. And yes, it's hard to leave my family behind, but we went to Philadelphia this summer for vacation, family vacation. And it hit different this time around to be at Independence Hall to remember this is why we exist. Representation is why we exist. And so, yes, the pull away from family, being apart from them is hard, but I do it because of my son.
Yeah, I love that. And we're about to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the principles of the Founding Fathers, of the best of Greek democracy, the Roman Republic, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty, rule of law. It's not exaggerated, all of it at risk. And this is, I mean, I really applaud you because you've given us, I mean, it's, you know, it's like we talk about in psychology where, you know, so often those old enough to remember record players, but we're, you know, there's sort of a predictability until you scratch the record. There has to be a pattern interrupt.
Yes.
And I think for me, this quorum has done that, and it's forced a national conversation, as uncomfortable as it is.
Yes.
But behind that is your son. Behind that are your families. Behind that's your reputation. I mean, you know, you're put it all out on the line, financial and otherwise. And you know, politics this is tough. And to your point, my question to you, in a swing district that can go either way, this doesn't necessarily aid and abet in advancing your prospects necessarily. So just, you know, just once again, why are you doing? What's the why? What's the burning why?
I think it's the big picture, democracy.
Yeah.
That's really why we're doing it, right? To save the rest of the country. I believe my colleague here said it best the other day. She said, we get to keep our seats, but the entire country will lose their voice. And I just, that really hit home with me when Ann said that. And that's the truth, right?
Speaking of losing, just they walked in. I guess Ken Paxton's just declared 13 seats vacant just seconds ago. The United State of Ken Paxton, dictator in chief, just with this kind of declaration. I mean, I guess we're at a point where nothing surprises you.
Yeah.
No.
I love it. I say that, and you're all just nonplussed.
Like,
You know, and it is frightening because you bring up Ken Paxton. You
Wow.
know, I was also on the impeachment team
Right.
where he was put before the Senate. The Senate had an opportunity to try to do the right thing. It was their Republican colleagues that were saying, hey, this guy
That was recently,
is
right?
corrupt. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. But, you know, it's a challenge because we have two split courts, the Texas Supreme Court, the Court of Criminal Appeals. When the Court of Criminal Appeals, all Republicans, when three of them took a stand and gave a ruling opposed to Paxton on constitutional grounds, he went after them politically. And unfortunately, he won. And that's what we talk about right now. The guardrails are missing. The guardrails within the Republican Party are missing. When you have them taking these steps, these extraordinary steps, this didn't happen 4 years ago. This is at a rapid fire that they think they can go to the courts, they can manipulate the courts, that the courts will not be there to be a backstop. It is part of the reason that we are trying to catch fire with the people, They are the last line of defense. The folks within the Republican Party will not say no to this. It is up to the voters. And that's why they are so desperately trying to cheat and change the lines, because it is up to the voters. And that's why we are desperately trying to have everybody stand up, as California is doing, and saying, you cannot let these dominoes start to fall, because we will completely lose our way.
Because Republicans aren't free. The elected Republicans, I had a Republican member of Congress from Texas say, I don't want this. None of my colleagues want this, but none of us will say no to Trump, so it will happen. And time again, we hear this refrain from our Republican colleagues. They don't agree with what's happening, but they won't stand up against it. We had Donald Trump weigh in the day of the vote, this regular session, on vouchers. We had a big fight that lasted years on taking money out of our neighborhood public schools and putting it into private schools for kids who already attend. Texas is through and through. Public schools are through and through part of our identity as Texans, right? And many Republicans were against vouchers, but Donald Trump called on the day of the vote and talked to all of the Republicans, and they supported it, even though their constituents were against it. They will not say no.
and in return, they were all endorsed by Trump.
Of course.
All of them have their little letters.
Yeah, they all have their
Yeah.
little letters, and they post them proudly.
Yeah, and the other, I think, if you start to kind of think about the far-reaching implications of what these shenanigans are going to create, the world is looking at us. They're looking at the American democracy that we've been trying to nurture for the last 250 years and saying, gee, we wish we could get to where you are. What they're going to see is that it's being eroded. They're going to see that the value of the American system is not what it used to be, and it puts us in a completely different position. Knowing that world politics are very, right now, very fragile, and they need someone with the strength that we've had in the past to be able to firmly say what we need to do and how we're going to lead democracy forward. That hand is gone, is going, it's fading. And now what are we going to do? There are a lot of countries that look to the United States, to the democracy, to the way of life that we've established over 250 years and saying, what are we going to do now? That's important. And that is what's going to go in the history books. If they allow those history books to be printed, of course.
Right.
But that's what's going to go down in those history books. That's what people are going to remember. That's what my 14 grandchildren are going to remember. When they say, Grandpa, what did you do during that time? I can tell them exactly what I did. But we've got to be able to tell that story to generations coming up so that we don't repeat the mistakes that we're creating right now. So
You're sitting in
there's a big stake in this.
I love everything you said. I love the spirit which it brought you to say it, and it's just for what it's worth. You're in a library with a lot of books that have been banned as they're rewriting history, censoring historical facts. You're seeing that in real time. So what you said was, I hope people paused and reflected on what you said. It wasn't just throwaway line. It's quite literal and real at this moment. So begs the question, held out 37 days, 2021. How come didn't necessarily go your way ultimately there? Governor, I'm intimately familiar with this, forgive me, has the ability to call another special session and then another special session. I heard your governor yesterday say he'll call another, until the end of time, or at least end of his time as his tenure as governor. So where does that leave you in the private conversations? I don't need to get into tactics or any of that, but we're all asking, how long are you willing to hold out? When's the end date of this special election? When are you going to be back seeing your grandkids? When are you going to see the family? When are you going to, reconcile the books and figure out how to pay these fines?
So that is the question we always get. Everyone wants to know, how does this end? It's human nature. Our lesson from the 21 quorum break was we stood up to fight to win for the day. Mm-hmm. We could win for the day, and the next day we took it as it came. Because of our bold act of defiance last time, we shamed Republicans into taking out those two egregious provisions that I described at the beginning of this program. They couldn't defend them, so they took them out of the bill ultimately, the most egregious parts.
Good.
And so essentially we say free and fair elections in Texas with our quorum break. The bill passed, but it wasn't the same bill.
Got it.
You just can't know what tomorrow brings. We can only fight to win today.
Yes,
Like that. So day by day,
surely.
I have to go back to the financial stress, though. I mean, you now have threats that anyone who aids and abets, quote unquote, you seeking some support related to these fines, will somehow be charged for bribery. They've quite literally threatened that on multiple occasions, your elected leaders in your state. So people that are, I imagine I'll be on that list shortly, if we're not already being surveilled by the FBI with this visit. I mean, how do you talk to your kids about that? Say, don't worry, honey, we're good. Your husband or wife, home saying, you're already, this, again, you're not getting rich working in this.
I definitely, thank you for bringing that up. I want to speak to that because I am one of the only, or maybe very few, that are full-time legislators in a part-time legislature. I don't have another job.
Wow, yeah.
So I don't think any of us are in it for the money, though. I want you
Or we
to.
would be.
Clearly, no.
Or we
Yeah,
wouldn't be here.
I
That's,
don't think we are.
stipulated.
I don't think we are. And I honestly think, my husband has given up on, that she's not about public service. And so it really is about us serving the people and the constituents that we have, listening to them, representing them in a way that they know that we're their voice. When they go to that ballot box, we want them to know that their voice really does count and their vote counts, and that we're going to speak in their best interest and on their behalf. And I think nobody can buy that. You just really can't buy that. And I think in a district that in 2018, with the help of my community, I was able to flip, I think they know that that's who the person they have sitting there. And I can't be bought, and I'm going to always stick up for them. So.
Nice.
And it does show how desperate they are. I mean, they have threatened our leadership positions. They've threatened our job. They're now trying to vacate. They're threatened direct deposit. I mean, they literally are throwing anything and everything at the wall, these allegations of bribery. They're throwing all this stuff that they can at the wall. And I think it shows how desperate they are that they have to perform for Donald Trump. And they're going to look embarrassed if they don't get it done this time. I will say it's a little rich for these guys to make an allegation of bribery, given the fact that Dan Patrick took $3 million on the eve of the trial before he presided in Paxton from one of Paxton's biggest donor. It's a little rich for the governor when he took $12 million from an individual out of Pennsylvania who had an interest in getting the vouchers passed. And so we know that what they are is just throwing up desperate allegations because they're doing anything and everything that they can to try to force us back. But again, it just strengthens our resolve, because it shows us how desperate they are to not serve the interests of the people, but to serve the interests of Donald Trump. And that's not who we serve.
And it has not slowed down contributions.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Maybe the opposite. I imagine it's only accelerated them.
And it is. We, like anybody else, it's also ironic that Governor Abbott sent out an email talking about us and had a donate link at the bottom. Of
course.
So, yes, we are elected officials who campaign, and people can send us contributions. And that is, what keeps us having the ability to lift our voice and be able to campaign and be able to put out an opposing position to these guys that are out there.
And look, the damage that's going to be done to generations of Texas kids who are going to grow up in a society where if you're Hispanic or black, the government's not going to feel they're accountable to you. The way these lines are drawn, the government's only going to be accountable to one particular group. I mean, what kind of society they're going to grow up in? It is going to take us generations if we go back to the 1960s and have our own version of the civil rights struggle all over again here in 2025. So the damage that's going to be done to future generations of Texans honestly pales in comparison to whatever it is they're going to do to any of us. And I think a lot of members feel that way. And that's why I think they're just so determined in their resolve.
I love that. And I appreciate, just the reflection. California has about 39% of its population is Hispanic, 27% of its population foreign-born, a majority minority state. It's a point of deep pride that we don't tolerate. We celebrate that diversity. At our best, we celebrate that diversity. Texas is right there and now looking to exceed. It's an extraordinary state, isn't it? And so this notion of representation, of representing and everybody having a voice, seeing themselves as well, is so critical. And so I really appreciate you highlighting that. What do we need to highlight, though? What's the message? Look, you're here in California. I'm grateful. We're about to have a press conference with former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, other congressional representatives. You're going to be here with my pro tem and Speaker of our legislature. We're moving forward very aggressively to neuter, to eliminate the 5 seats. We'll do the same here in California. So all of this is for naught, Donald Trump. All this is for naught. It's show. And we will fight fire with fire. And we will punch above our weight. California's the size of 21 state populations combined. We're not here for a press conference. We're here to take action, and we're here to deliver results. And we're going to do it in a transparent way, a temporary way, because we believe in independent redistricting. Yeah. We'll do it on the basis of a vote of the people as well, respecting, and as you said, the people. And in democracy, the most important office, Brandeis said, is the office of citizen. So this notion of transparent maps and active, not inert citizenry is foundational. But what more do we need to do? What do other states need to do?
You know, I think folks, when they talk about redistricting and they say, oh, those guys are just redistricting, I don't think they understand this is not normal. We don't redistrict mid-decade.
Yes.
And even if we think about the last time we redistricted, states like yours, where you have an independent commission, you allowed the people to draw the lines. Many of us have offered legislation in Texas to have an independent commission, to have the people draw the lines. I think people forget Republicans in those states started the game last decade already carving up districts to give them a heavy advantage. And even with that cheat, when other folks are letting their people do it, here we are 4 years in. They know they're about to lose, and so they want to redraw it again. We appreciate greatly the courage that California is showing. The fact that you have stepped up and immediately said, Texas, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But what we hope to do is lift a conversation in which, wouldn't it be great if the nation said, you know what, we should all let the people draw the lines.
100%.
We should all do an independent commission and get politicians out of drawing our lines. And so we are grateful that you are willing to, as you say, fight fire with fire, because when one group is playing by one set of rules and not allowing the others to play by an equal set of rules, it violates the fundamental fairness of who we are as people and a nation.
Appreciate that. And one of the things that we intend to do with the consent of the legislature and ultimately present to the voters in a special election the first week in November, so in a very short period of time, is also a commitment to support a national independent redistricting commission. So we want to reinforce that principle and that paradigm, and that's why we're looking at this as an emergency response to this outrageous act in this mid-decade redistricting. But again, it's not just rhetorical. And I think, look, one of the big frustrations I have often with my party, with our party, the Democratic Party, is fire and fury, oftentimes signifying little or nothing. Sometimes we just sit there and we're on the side. We feel there's a weakness sometimes because we push back, but we're not delivering on the counter. And that's why it's, I think, really critical that we're successful here in California. We have to deliver a equal reaction that actually produces a real result. What more can we do in our state, but other states as well, to actually deliver, not just in moral support, not talk about sort of the better angels, and not just have your back rhetorically, but to get back on the offensive, not just constantly being shapeshifted by these folks on the receiving end. 24/7. I joke all the time. It's not a joke, but everything with 3 letters: ESG, DEI, CRT, IRS, FBI, except when they need to weaponize them. EPA. We're constantly on the receiving end on this redistricting. At least we feel like we have a tool, and that's the people themselves. We, the people, that can exercise their moral and formal authority to neutralize what's happening in Texas and to get back. But what else do you want to see across this country in a more meaningful and substantive way?
I think Americans and Texans for sure want to see how these things impact their daily lives. For me, part of why, yes, there's the big picture representation, democracy goals, but ultimately this is about higher prices at the grocery stores and how these pay-to-play tariffs that Donald Trump is implementing are hurting everyday Americans, everyday Texans. It's about a hit to financial aid and ability for often Latino communities in Texas to attend college, but all communities, right? They rely on that kind of aid, and what Donald Trump is doing to that, hit to health care, hit to neighborhood schools, the list goes on. And those are real threats to Americans that will continue to get worse if this goes unchecked. And so I think ideas and examples of how this big picture conversation is impacting their everyday lives and will protect. That's why we have representation, to protect the people against harm and abuse from the politicians, to hold them accountable. That's what Donald Trump is taking away. And the more we can speak to people's daily lives and the way what we do impacts them, I think the better.
Love that. It's not just about drawing lines, it's sort of holding the line having a line of accountability, oversight, back to this notion of co-equal branches of government, and this fundamental notion of what underneath all of it it's about, which is about having the aspirations in mind of the American people, having the aspirations of not just your district, your state, but our nation, and addressing all of these profound issues. And as you say, on the tariffs and everything else, I mean, at the end of the day, it is about all of those issues. So that's important. What else do we need to sort of raise in terms of consciousness around, again, the why this is so important?
Well, I can tell you, what I tell all my folks is that, listen, as elected officials, we do this day in and day out. We're always having the dialogue. We have an in-depth understanding, and sometimes we overcomplicate the process. What we need to do is to get those moms and dads that get up early in the morning, dress their kids, take them to school, drop them off, pick them up in the afternoon, take them to daycare, go to the grocery store, pay for the eggs and the milk, to have that conversation of what this economy is doing to them at the town square, have that discussion among themselves and understand what the impact is to America. Because as elected officials, we say it all the time, and sometimes they don't have time to listen to what we're telling them. It's important, they get it, they just don't have time. They're taking care of their lives. They're trying to cook the dinner. They're trying to get their kids off to school. So what I tell everyone, get with your neighbors, whatever that town square is for you, whether it's your homeowner association or some event that you happen to go to, take the discussion there and raise the issues, how it's affecting you directly. I think if we do that, I think the entire country will understand we've got to do something different. And that's, I think, the only way we're going to really be successful.
I love it.
We need folks who are sick and tired of being sick and tired to get up and vote in the next election cycle.
Amen.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, to Gina's point, the loss of access to health care, and especially when we look at taking food out of children's mouths and the SNAP benefits that are gone.
Yep.
But we just want that message to resonate so much with people that they don't forget come November. So to Ann's point, that really brings it home for me, that they don't forget when they go to that ballot box.
People tend to have very short memories.
Yeah.
And that's really sad because, and I think this is why the governor gets elected on the off years, right? Because people are like, there's an election? So, but I think educating the voters on the big picture, whatever that big picture is to them, is probably the best thing to do.
And I would say in this moment, I think the more Americans who learn about the details of the map, I think more Americans should be outraged at what's being proposed. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, if you're white, black, Latino, what are the implications of a government that feels like it is not going to be accountable to a large segment of its population? It's going to be held accountable to a small segment that it's going to handpick. What kind, in order for democracy to work, we need our government to be accountable to all people, regardless of race, regardless of where they live, and that's not what's happening here. So whether you're Republican or Democrat, you want a government that's going to be held accountable to everybody, not their just handpicked constituents. And I would say, too, look, clearly what happens in Texas affects California. And we have 30 years of Republican rule where they have systematically designed and drawn these lines to ensure that Black and Hispanic residents don't vote. The overwhelming number of Latinos and Blacks in Texas are stuck in districts that are uncompetitive. And they're there where there's a 95% Latino population because that's the best way for Republicans to throw away votes. And so how do we activate these large segments of Texas that have been active for so long? I think it's going to take a national effort from the Democratic Party, but I think people from all states, because there are just large segments of our population who just don't see any reason to vote, but that's the way the government has created it.
Don't give up on Texas. Also, Texas really, without all this the grift, like we could do a whole segment on just the grift, but without all the grift and the manipulation, Texas is a purple state. We have not, we say Texas Democrats were the ATM for the rest of the nation. We need investment in Texas. We export, our Republicans in Texas export all the worst ideas to the national level. You want us to flip. It's over when we flip, right? So that's what I would encourage. People think Texas is crazy. Yes, crazy things come out of Texas, but we see in our communities that Texans are open. Texans are open to being persuaded. They care about what you're going to do to help them in their own lives. And I would say, please take a chance on Texas, invest in Texas.
Love it. It's a spectacular state and spectacular representatives from
Thank
the
you.
state. And I really appreciate Mara. And just for folks listening, watching, you guys flew in, you're going to fly right out. And that means the world to all of us that are trying to raise awareness, raise the alarm bells of this moment where we get so easily distracted by, sugar and Coca-Cola or whatever the new distraction in Alcatraz may be. What's really happening in this country? It is code red. It is code red. And this only highlights, this punctuates what's at stake. The Trump presidency de facto ends in less than 18 months if we get Speaker Jeffries back into office. Donald Trump knows that. They're on the run. They know they will lose the midterms if they do not rig them. And that's what this is all about. And the fact that you are willing to sacrifice so much of your personal as well as professional reputation to be here and to be everywhere you've been. Everybody listening should owe you, and do, I think, owe you a debt of gratitude, regardless of party. This is about fundamental, enduring principles that have served the world, not just our country, for 249 years. So I'm deeply grateful, and I'm proud as well to have this opportunity in a transparent way to have this conversation, this private conversation, more publicly, so people understand why you're out here, and the opportunity now to share that more publicly with this press conference with Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, and talk more about the stakes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.